And I remember when I guess I was like in high school or, yeah, it was probably early high school. And me and a buddy and like my brother and my dad, we were going on a little vacation, like a car trip or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like the first year I could drive. And I drove and we were just super excited about it. Me and my buddy were like, we're going to make a documentary, right?
Yeah.
It's just a goof, like it's just
Yeah.
some kind of copy of whatever you're making. I'm like 16.
Yeah.
Um, but we filmed a ton of footage,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt similar to what he would like. Obviously, he's more versed in creating things.
Yeah.
He has a level of success, but he was like, yeah, I just had all this footage, he's like opening the door and like that doesn't mean anything. Like, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
I think everybody though has to go through that process. Not every, but most people
Mm-hmm.
have to go through that process.
Yeah.
And they have to like go through that. Like when I first started taking photos, I was taking like Instagram photos.
Yeah.
That was kind
right.
of the influence
Yeah.
on, oh, I'm going to take these photos and put them out on Instagram. And that stuff. So like YouTube and Instagram, it's good because it can act as a motivator to get started. But the problem is when we're just putting everything out there from like, we all have to go through those stages.
Yeah.
The greatest directors had to go through just making some shit to kind of figure out,
Yeah.
okay, well, this and this work together. And like, it's just iteration.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a more intuitive understanding with some people than others, but there's always iteration. You always have to start somewhere and go. And the iteration phase has just, it's almost expected that it's completely public now.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
And it has been for about a decade,
Yeah.
maybe a little over. And I think like when you go completely public, iteration needs to be experimentation. You need to be the scientist in the lab coat. You need to be willing to throw out all of your data, like throw out your journal, burn your journal,
Yeah.
start a new one,
Yeah.
throw out the experiment, do it again. And when everything's public,
Mm-hmm.
you lose the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's afraid to look like an idiot.
Yep.
So why would you risk going over here and doing something that's completely different than everybody else is doing? Because the social stigma or the shame that'll come with, you don't even know how to expose right, or you don't know
Yeah.
how to do this, or you don't know how to do that. Why would you risk that?
Yeah.
Especially, you've been putting out videos, in your experimentation phase for a couple of years, and you've got a subscriber base, or maybe you blew up. Maybe you have like
Yeah.
80,000 subscribers.
Absolutely.
Because something you said went crazy, because the algorithm isn't concerned with quality. It's concerned with like
Yeah.
people's attention.
Keeping people
Yeah.
on the platform.
So maybe something, and you're kind of trapped into
Yeah.
that, where like there is no room for evolution because you've created this safety framework that you have to stay within, and there's a social construct, there's a social contract around it.
The audience expects more of that.
And you have to, you have a reputation that you need to live up to. You can't just throw out. So I think something that's hurt art, or just the creating work that is unique and meaningful. I think something that's hurt that is everybody's just being forced almost to evolve their skill set in front of a million people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily the best way to. There's a reason when you're training for something that you don't know how to do, you're not doing it broadcast to the
Yeah.
world. Like you're in a room with an instructor, and like so I think it's. I mean, everybody remembers in school when you didn't know the answer to something, and you're in a class of 15 other people, maybe.
Yeah.
You're not going to raise your hand and be like, because you're risking getting that wrong and looking stupid.
Yep.
And I think when you apply that to a platform that broadcasts to the world, you're having to learn in real time, and it stunts that ability to evolve into to get that. And I think with that video, because I mean, yeah, he's just talking about, I shot a documentary, and I'm like, I've done that. I'm sure you've done that too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what your first like foray into film was, but for a lot of people, I feel like it's just like you watch some movies, you kind of get an idea of what is, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to create a documentary. I'm going to write a little script or whatever. And, it's probably not going to be worth watching. But then the next one, you iterate a little bit. The next one, you iterate a little bit. And then after, a decade, sometimes quicker, sometimes it's a couple of years.
Right.
You're going to be at a place, but your voice is going to be a part of that because you didn't have to do that in public. You could just try whatever came to mind. This is interesting. Let's try that. This is interesting. Let's try that.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.